Welcome to Looking at Lucasfilm, the podcast with a different perspective on the world of Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and all of the other entities that George Lucas, Kathleen Kennedy, and the rest of the team at Lucasfilm had dreamed up over the past 40 years. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and my co-host, the one, the only, Dan Z, and I are recording this on Wednesday, April 15th, which is traditionally tax day here in the States. Dan, did you actually get your taxes done before they extended the deadline out, or?
Yeah, mine were done a couple of months ago. We tried to take care of that right off the bat. Yeah.
Okay.
How about you?
Well, again, I live at the end of a dirt road. I kind of work the Unabomber side of the street, so
Oh, good.
I anticipate the IRS will come find me someday. Anyway, okay, so yes, April 15th. And for those of you who are history buffs, this is also the night the Titanic went down, back in 1912. I did a little due diligence before we got started here, Dan, tonight. That's 1,514 people were lost that night. That's why we still talk about this disaster 108 years later. However, just to put this in perspective, the Washington Post reported a half hour ago, 2,400 people died in the United States just today from the coronavirus. So, yeah, kind of sobering news. And
yes.
Also, again, a weird sort of way, though. Again, you as the English teacher, I always think of the T.S. Eliot line from The Wasteland. What is it? April is the cruelest month?
Yes, ironic. Really ironic. How's the weather been for you guys? We woke up this morning, 2 days ago it was in the 70s. Today the ground was covered in snow. It's a pretty odd time, but that's why we're excited to talk about some Lucasfilm products and releases, because we know the people need a smile on their face. And good news, the Force is strong with us, so we are ready to go.
Well, yeah, but again, I hate to be Debbie Downer, but we have to start with the disappointing news, and that's
yes,
your buddy, your good, close, personal friend Harrison Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Who it looks like it's going to be a little while yet before he puts back on his hat and grabs his whip. You heard about this, right?
Oh, yeah, sadly, yes.
Yeah, Indiana Jones has been pushed back yet again. And look, folks, this is really because a ripple effect that was kind of started with Mulan, Disney's live-action version of Mulan. It was supposed to open on March 27th. That's now scheduled to debut at your local multiplex on July 24th. But the problem is, July 24th used to be the day that Disney's The Jungle Cruise, the Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt movie, was going to arrive in theaters. And according to folks a number of folks at the studio, they think Jungle Book could be the studio's next big film franchise, like Pirates of the Caribbean big. But of course, when you have something that you think of as a summer blockbuster, you have to release it in the summer. So the way this works is Jungle Cruise got pushed off till July 30th, 2021, which up until recently was where Indy 5 was supposed to finally be coming out after being put off like 3 times in a row, Dan, 4 times in a row.
I'm starting to need an abacus to figure it out.
Okay. Well, all right. At this point, Indy 5, which by the way is still going to be written and directed by James Mangold and executive produced by Steven Spielberg. It's now slated to arrive in theaters July 29th, 2022. And it just makes me crazy because I know on a recent Looking at Lucasfilm, you and I were talking about how, they were going to start shooting in London in April? But
yeah, he was all set to go and was talking about it in promotionals for Call of the Wild. And then, I've got a bad feeling about this. Here we go with Corona.
Well, and that's the thing. We actually just had um, Marvel and Pixar and Lucasfilm furlough staff on April 9th. So, with that going on, obviously production isn't going to begin anytime soon on Indy 5. Uh, should be try to be positive though here, Dan. That the furlough does give Mangold, who co-wrote the screenplay for Logan, that R-rated X-Men movie that he also directed back in, I want to say, 2017. It gives him more time to polish the screenplay for Indy 5, which at this point has been worked on by Jonathan Kasdan, and
Yeah.
um,
So many. Was the third person to kind of get a crack at it?
third time's the charm. Remember,
Yeah, let's hope so.
we're being positive here if we can be. A weird little side note, though, and again, I'm kind of embarrassed that I forgot this, but remember when, about the time, it was just when Solo was, a Star Wars story was being released in theaters. Look at the Hollywood Reporter reported that Lucasfilm had recruited James Mangold to write and direct a Star Wars story movie, again, the standalone in the style of Rogue One or Solo. But this was supposed to be about Boba Fett. And I think we must have talked about that at some point, didn't we, Dan?
Yeah, it's come up a couple of times. It's long been the fans' dream for there to be a Boba Fett standalone film. I remember when I was in college, someone was telling me that Boba Fett was a Jedi and it said so in all the books. And I said, "Oh, really? What books?" I'm kind of a big Star Wars fan. Tell me about the books there. And he goes, "Well, I don't know the title of them, but that's the truth." I mean, for years, and this was back in the 90s, so for years, people have been speculating about his background, his story, what he might mean, and they've always been hungry for him. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the prequels and some of the episodes of the Clone Wars, when we saw Boba Fett as a younger individual, sort of stymied that a little bit, but then, time heals all wounds, creative and otherwise. And now people are all set for this, and we've certainly been talking about it, but it doesn't sound like... Well, I mean, I think things turned a different way, didn't they?
Well, they did. I mean, again, after Solo, Star Wars story underperforms at the box office, Lucasfilm tables its plans to make a Boba Fett movie in October of 2018, and opted instead to go forward with the production of The Mandalorian for Disney Plus, which seemed to have worked out. By the way, again, I know you typically don't trade in rumors, so I'm always a little reluctant to bring them up here on this podcast. But did you see the story that was making the rounds yesterday about Ming-Na Wen's character, and I want to say Fennec Shand, the shark?
Fennec Shand, yeah. I saw that, and I thought, well, how did that happen? Because she appeared to perish, I think, in the fourth or fifth episode.
Yeah, the gunslinger.
That written by Filoni. And directed by Filoni. No, it was written by Favreau. They're all written by Favreau, but Filoni directed that one. But when she died, towards the end of that episode, they didn't actually show her body per se. So it did kind of cross my mind, but I was a little surprised to see this story.
Well, now remember that at the very end of episode 5, there's this weird shot where you've got Shan's body, and then you see this person step into the shot at the foreground, but you can only see them from like the feet and the lower calves up. You never get to see who it is. There was at that moment there was a lot of speculation about, okay, so what's the significance of that? Is Fennec actually dead, or more to the point, who's just stepped into the shot? And there was a lot of speculation that it actually was Boba Fett. So I don't know what to tell you, folks. The only way we're going to find out is we got to make it to October, which is when season 2 of The Mandalorian begins airing on Disney Plus. But while we wait, can you talk a little bit about this Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian thing, the news that broke today? Because
basically we're going to get to see some exciting stuff. We're going to get a Mandalorian fix starting May the 4th, which of course is the unofficial Star Wars day. And along the lines of an 8-episode documentary series, it's going to go behind the scenes of each of the episodes of The Mandalorian. Very, very detailed. Favreau's heavily involved with it. The footage, the conversations, it's going to be awesome. And I've heard that it's just going to blow people away. And if you thought that special effects thing we saw was impressive, just wait until you see this.
Cannot wait. Now speaking, though, about May 4th, that's also, again, today was revealed that that's when the very last episode of Season 7 of Star Wars The Clone Wars airs. And do you get to see the trailer that dropped today or for the last 4?
Yes. The trailer looks spectacular, and the description that Lucasfilm shared in the press release was exciting because it indicated that this storyline is basically going to run parallel or just before Revenge of the Sith, and that is major, major news.
I have to admit, that Mandalorian trailer was killer, and I know you and I talked, on a previous show about the most recent episodes of Clone Wars, the one featuring the Martez sisters. And I wasn't entirely on board, but it ended well. More to the point, given that your depth of knowledge when it comes to the Star Wars saga and that sort of thing, you obviously knew that Bo-Katan, am I saying that name right?
Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan. She would be coming back on the stage of the Clone Wars series.
Yes. Katie Sackhoff is the voice of Bo-Katan.
Okay.
Famous for Battlestar Galactica.
That's right. Oh, God, you're right. Yeah. Doesn't she actually play, or didn't she play the Starbuck character in? Yes.
And she's amazing. And she's great in this, too. But, yeah, that's where she definitely kind of rose to prominence.
Okay, so, and I got to say, I loved the bit in the trailer where you got to see Ahsoka reunite with the clones. That was just a little bit of staging and great storytelling. But
they showed that as Celebration, that sequence.
Did they really?
Where Anakin walks her in and all the clones are there and they're wearing that helmet with Ahsoka's kind of design. Or I don't know if it's her. I guess it's like tattoos on it, or maybe that's just her birthmark. I'm not really sure how they do it, but it's obviously her, and it's really, really touching. It plays very, very well.
Got it. Okay. Well, again, folks, mark your calendars. Again, so that's the series finales of Star Wars The Clone Wars, as well as the first episode of Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian, both becoming available for streaming on Disney Plus starting on Monday, May 4th.
By the way, have you noticed, and Drew could probably speak to this a lot better than I could, and you as well, but have you noticed like the animation, sort of the models they're using for these characters are really, really strong? You can tell they've kind of layered them up a bit.
Well, remember, I was trying to do my due diligence and started with the Clone Wars, the movie that was released theatrically, that sort of kickstarted the series. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Well, again, we talked previously about how George kind of wanted that Thunderbirds, puppet look, coupled with, of course, what the work that Gennady had done on the Clone Wars hand-drawn thing. But you're right. I mean, I have to admit, if you start with that film and look at the animation today, I don't know if it's better rigs or it's better lighting or better, subsurface work, but yeah, they look amazing. And more to the point, and I mean this in the kindest possible way, when you're watching the Rise of Skywalker, particularly the end scene, or the end battle scene where there's the 10,000 death cruisers or whatever they are, and all of the other the rebels send 6,000 ships to battle with them. Um, the thing of the animated series is I always know where to look. It's so beautifully staged. I'm never confused watching a scene. I always know where exactly I'm supposed to be looking and what story points are being revealed. And that just this is really, really quality work, folks. And again, if you're not on board yet, especially out ahead of these last 4 episodes, be sure to check out season 7. Um, by the way, we were just talking about The Mandalorian, and what was it? 3 days ago, 4 days ago, I reached out to you, Dan, with to share some information in regard to your local Hallmark story.
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right, folks. Just this past week, Hallmark has published its 2020, I want to say it's called the Dream Catalog.
Yes.
Lists all of the ornaments that are coming out this year. And again, it's Hallmark. So there are ornaments based on professional sports. There are ornaments based on Warner Brothers characters. There are ornaments based on Disney characters, Pixar characters. And more importantly, to listen to this show, there are ornaments based on Star Wars. To be specific, The Mandalorian. And the thing is, I sent Dan a link because they have an absolutely charming ornament for the child Baby Yoda character. And likewise, a nice strong action pose for the Mandalorian himself.
Yeah,
okay.
There's quite a lineup, and I know there's not as many Hallmark stores, retail brick and mortar stores as there used to be, but I feel like it's still going to be a huge draw. You can sign up online. I mean, kudos to you. Thank you for letting me know because I had no idea these were coming out, and I also saw they also have a gorgeous mold of an AT-AT one. They've got a ton of ornaments that are coming out to celebrate the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back. There's quite a few Star Wars ornaments coming up, but obviously you and I both know that the Mandalorian and especially the child are going to be the big draws.
They are, which is why, again, my good friend Angela Ragno walked me through what we need to do. And it turns out, if you go to Hallmark.com, they have what they call your wish list. And what they basically do, Dan, is that you put together which of the ornaments from the Dream Catalog you like. And what they then do is pair you with the Hallmark store that's closest to where you live. And what's interesting is that Hallmark store then uses your order and all of the other orders, that folks in the vicinity have made. And they use that to inform their ordering for the upcoming holiday season. The nice upside of that is that means they have, for example, if you do the wish list thing, they have a child waiting for you. They have a Mandalorian waiting for you. They will, they'll contact you and say, hey, we've got it. If you want to come in and collect it. So if you want to take the guesswork and the worry out of this, that might be something worth pursuing. Now, mind you, we are talking about, what is it, $19.99, I think is what the price point was for these two.
Yep, so, that sounds right.
Yeah, not inexpensive, but but again, beautifully designed, and again, if you've got a Star Wars fan that you're shopping for this year, and you want to do something special for Christmas, I mean, besides the two that we just mentioned, now I got to go back and look at the 30th anniversary of the Empire stuff. Thanks, Dan.
40th anniversary.
40th?
Yeah, 1980.
Dear Lord, you're right. I am
crazy.
So old. Speaking of Empire, though, just today, Walt Disney Studios announced that they're holding a flash sale with the idea that aid all of us who were sitting at home and feeling a little stir crazy, wanted some additional entertainment. And the way this flash sale works is that they're making select films from the studio's vast library, and we're talking Pixar, we're talking 20th Century, we're talking everything. but they're on sale for a limited time on digital platforms here in the U.S. The films, which start at $4.99 a piece, are being organized in thematic collections, with different collections becoming available each week throughout April and May. And the thematic collection that I think is obviously going to interest looking at Lucasfilm listeners is, of course, the May the 4th, which available digital HD and ultra high def from Tuesday, April 28th through May 4th. But it's the entire Star Wars saga from Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, all the way through to Rise of Skywalker, plus how many of the Star Wars stories at this point? There's Rogue One and Solo.
That's it. Yep, just those two.
Okay, and then of course there's the standalone film that goes out with Rise of Skywalker, the Skywalker saga. And Dan, I want to thank those looking at Lucasfilms who were nice enough to reach out with their opinions of the Target exclusive edition of Episode 9. In fact, they're the ones who mentioned that the book that came along with it really is kind of a cut-down edition of Phil Sostak's Art of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. But I myself, and again, I apologize, I've been busy. I haven't sat down and watched the Star Wars, the Skywalker saga. If you could chime in through social media and let us know your favorite parts of the Skywalker saga, and maybe you'll finally convince the two of us to actually push through and watch the whole thing. We were just talking about Phil Sostak's The Art of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. Did you see that tidbit that bubbled up early this week from the book?
No, tell me about it.
Okay. This buried down deep in the text of this 256-page hardcover. This is the exact quote. Solo, a Star Wars film, had been intended to be the first of many Star Wars films to return the franchise to its traditional late May release date. So evidently the thinking was that if Solo, a Star Wars story, had been a huge success when it was released to theaters in May of 2018, what Lucasfilm wanted to do was try to convince Disney to shift the release date of all future Star Wars films back to when, Episode 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, and 3 were released, which was basically the Memorial Day weekend. Which I get it. I get why they'd want to do that. But given that the original Avengers came out in May of 2012, and then Avengers: Age of Ultron came out in May of 2015, and then I think both Infinity War and Endgame came out in April, but it was really the last week of April. I'm just thinking, given what it takes to properly launch a summer blockbuster, to promote it, and to and especially with the hope that it not only is number one in its opening weekend, but it's it hangs on to that position for another couple of weekends behind that. It might have been tough for Lucasfilm to convince Disney to surrender the Memorial Day weekend to Star Wars, especially since Marvel had really kind of already claimed that turf.
Yeah, and if I've always felt like kind of the Christmas, kind of the glow of Christmas has been more of a family experience for people to go to the movie theaters anyway, and I think all the box office receipts have certainly proved that.
No doubt,
but
no doubt.
It's hard, and I agree. Marvel has pretty much set the stake out, although they seem to be doing pretty well in April, or at least in past years.
Well, the interesting thing is supposedly Marvel now believes that they've managed to push the start of summer blockbuster season into April, which again, when you think about, Hollywood was convinced that summer blockbuster season started Memorial Day. It's just kind of astounding we're now in April, or we were in April until the theaters closed. But anyway, after Solo underperformed, all of this just basically became academic, and Lucasfilm actually then moved Episode 9, The Last Jedi, out of its previously announced May 2019 release date to the already established safe harbor of that just before Christmas release date. And again, as Dan pointed out, you can't really mess with everybody being home, and the family's looking for things to do, to be in that spot with a Star Wars film. Of course, but let's remember that also in that same window of time was when the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie that Stephen Daldry was supposed to direct got reimagined as a limited series. And speaking of which, I think, I don't know if we talked about this on the last show, Dan, but Lucasfilm just revealed that Joby Harold has been hired to rewrite the scripts for the Obi-Wan limited series that Hosni Amani had previously written. And remember, they were talking about those scripts. They were done.
Yeah, totally done. And Kathleen Kennedy even talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what happened.
Well, I think in a lot of ways, to not to keep beating the same drum, but Mandalorian became such a phenomena, and and really established a template for how these things could be, that maybe they thought, okay, now we got to top the Mandalorian. But anyway, Deborah Chow, who again directed 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, episode 3, The Sin, and episode 7, The Reckoning. She's still on tap to direct Obi-Wan Kenobi limited series, and now the start of production has been pushed back for obvious reasons from August of 2020 to January 2021. Anyway, that's the future of the franchise. In a moment, we're going to take a look back at the very first time a Star Wars character made an appearance on Disney World property.
This episode is brought to you by CBS. DMV is a brand new workplace comedy turning misery into magic and chaos into comedy. Starring Harriet Dyer and Tim Meadows, DMV is here to serve you laughs. Watch Mondays at 8:30, 7:30 Central on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
And we're back. Again, I feel bad, folks. I feel like Dan and I have talked about a lot of bad, depressing news. But I wanted to share a news item that literally just came through before Dan and I started recording tonight. And well, first of all, you have to explain that the UK right now is facing a severe shortage of personal protective equipment in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. What's interesting is that the folks who designed costumes for the Downton Abbey TV series, as well as all of the Star Wars films that have recently been shot over in the UK, they've stepped in to help, Dan. These folks, along with their production teams, have stitched together thousands of medical scrubs for the nation's beleaguered National Health Service. They've got people working in 30 different locations, and as of tonight, Dan, they've put together 6,500 scrubs. Which
It's extraordinary. Yeah.
I mean, I love that, they were able to do that. And more to the point, how they're going to be used. Speaking of costume designs, though, Dan, I have to ask, did you see that High Republic concept art that StarWars.com put up online on April 2nd?
Oh, yeah. Not only did I see it, but we talked about it on Monday nights to do the Facebook Live show. And I spent quite a bit of time looking them over and talking about them because they're so Arthurian in their scope and the mythological constructs.
All right, because that's the thing. All I could think of is that, these are images of the Jedi Knights and Masters, and they seem to have really leaned into the Knights thing, as in the Knights of the Round Table. It just, well, what is it? Michael Seidlin, the creative director for Lucasfilm Publishing, was quoted in the releases as talking about this is a hopeful, optimistic time when the Jedi were good and noble. And those outfits, I mean, with all of the ivory colored robes and gold trim, I mean, they just, they look good. Though I have to ask, I want to say her name is Keeve Trennis.
Your guess is as good as mine on that. Because they haven't shared with us what they are, so I don't know.
All right,
they're tricky.
They are. But what was kind of intriguing to me, out of the 5 images that they showed us, the one individual who's wearing somewhat dark clothing, and in fact, this is the young woman who looks a lot like Rafa Martez from the Clone Wars animated series.
Oh yeah.
She was the only one in dark, to have sort of dark, accented clothing. So again, it was one of these things where it's like, okay, am I reading too much into this as in dark side? But at the same time, Obi-Wan Kenobi wore a dark robe when we first meet him in New Hope. It's just sort of like, again, Freud, sometimes a scar is just a cigar. But
oh boy, I'd never heard it put quite that way before. But it is fair to say that because the way they're described and the decor of their armor, I guess it's armor, it's just very decorative. They're supposed to be very squeaky clean, sort of the paragon of virtue for Jedi, which is saying something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, again, what is it? Now, we get our, this publish event is supposed to get underway this fall. Now mind you, as we learned with poor Drew's The Art of Pixar's Onward, and, how, the sort of supply chain from publishing got disrupted, I wonder if these books are actually going to make it for, the first High Republic book is going to make it out for this fall. But I love how they describe that the characters are all different. They're all at different stages in their individual journeys. Some have experience of the side, some have the exuberance of youth, and still others are trying to find their place in the order, while others sort of click into leadership roles. Now, you're keeping better tabs on this than I am. Which is the first of the books that's supposed to drop?
So the first book, which comes out in the earliest, the one in the fall, is called it's called Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. Okay. That's the first one. And then there's a comic book series, The High Republic, which is written by Kevin Scott. Then we've got Jose Elder, which has got The High Republic Adventures for IDW. We've got The High Republic, A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland, and that is a middle grade novel. And that one comes out September 8th. Okay, so that's really not that far away. Then we have Into the Dark by Claudia Gray. And that one is coming out October 13th. That's considered a young adult novel. Okay. Charles Soule's one that kicks it all off, that one, the actual date for that one, as I said, that one comes out in the fall, and maybe they'll move it around. I don't know. It'd be great to get a little more extra entertainment these days. But that one comes out on, let's see, it's hiding from me, August 25th. That's the earliest one.
Okay. All right. Well, again, folks, all I ask, we're all looking forward to these books, because, again, this is a fascinating set of characters and, lots of seeming potential in the world they're setting up here. But just, we live in a time when we all need to be a little bit more patient, a little bit more understanding. And if perhaps, if these books are in fact on the slow boat from China, it could be a while. So, but I'll tell you what, we'll reach out to the folks at Disney and publishing and Lucasfilm and see if they can help zero us a little bit on that. Anyway, okay. We talked, over the last couple of shows, we've done a number of stories about the Disney theme parks, and Lucasfilm, Star Wars, and the like. But I wanted on this one, Dan, to talk about the very first time a Star Wars character showed up at a Disney-owned property. And well, again, to properly set the stage, you need to understand that Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope arrived in theaters, as Dan can tell you, without even thinking. What is it? May 25th, 77?
You got it.
And the Lake Buena Vista Shopping Village opened at Walt Disney World on March 22nd, 1975. And the difference between these two things is one was a hit right out of the box, and the other one was not. You've been to the newly revived Disney Shopping Village at Disney Springs, right?
Oh my gosh, I have many times. It's one of the most wonderful places in the world.
Okay, and you've of course been to the Void and done.
Yes.
Okay, they only did the one Star Wars thing there, right?
Right. Yeah. So far, just the one. I experienced it in Glendale and in Orlando.
Okay, but face it, Disney Springs is a fun, exciting place. Whereas the Imagineers, when they initially designed this waterfront shopping district, they what they were shooting for, in fact, the literature of the time says, was a restful atmosphere, similar to a New England seaside village. And Dan, it may be that the Imagineers did their job too well, because if you talk to people who vacationed at Walt Disney World as well as Central Florida locals who'd went by the original iteration of the Lake Buena Vista Shopping Village back in the mid '70s, they would describe the place as a snooze. So literally in '77. The Imagineers start trying to jazz the place up. And in fact, when I say jazz, I mean that literally. One of the very first things they built in order to, make the Lake Buena Vista Shopping Village seem that much more exciting and more Disney was the Empress Lily, which was this 220-foot-long faux paddle wheel steamboat that was named after Walt's wife Lillian and had 3 restaurants as well as a jazz lounge on it. Did you ever manage to make it onto that, Dan?
No, I wish.
When you were a cast member down there in the college program, or
no, I for some reason it just didn't happen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wish.
Well, all right. It very elegant. In fact, this was.
I remember seeing it. I definitely remember seeing it, but just not going on it.
Yeah, well, that's again, a lot of folks probably have happy memories of it because again, this was the first place you could do character dining on Disney property. They again, when they weren't doing the jazz lounge thing at night, in the morning hours. In fact, at its busiest, at its height, they were doing 3 breakfasts a morning in there. And just so people could have really bad pancakes and cold bacon and hang out with Mickey. But anyway, getting back to 77. So they opened the Empress Lily, but they want to try to make the shopping village, which by the way, they've renamed at this point. It's now the Walt Disney World Village. Subtle, right? Just in case people wanted it to be more Disney. And they also, the other way they wanted to make it more exciting, hip happening, is by inviting colorful characters like Don Post. Now you collect some Star Wars merch, right? So
some. That's like saying Willy Wonka made some chocolate.
But do you have any of Don Post's masks in your collection?
No, I do not have them, but I can certainly think of a lot of great spots to place them for sure.
Okay. Well, I guess we should explain who Don Post was. Don was actually the guy. Again, it's one of these things where it's like I never thought there was actually a guy who did this, but he was the guy who invented the over-the-head latex mask back in the 1930s, which the irony is it made Don hugely popular in Hollywood because, especially in the 1950s, as television is taking off, and you have all these people who are working in effects who, frankly need a quick and easy and cheap solution to their show's makeup challenges. So anyway, Don's out in Hollywood. He developed these working relationships with the powers that be in Tinseltown, and which is how he's one of the very first guys to get into product licensing. So to be specific, Don acquires the license to make light latex masks of the classic Universal monsters, the chimpanzee, orangutan, and gorilla characters from 20th Century Fox, Planet of the Apes movies. The Kirk and Spock, he made masks of Kirk and Spock from Star Trek's Paramount series, which kind of a weird tangent here. Dan, do you know that the Halloween movies at all with Mike Myers?
I know what you're going to say. I was actually just going to add that anecdote, but yeah, go ahead.
Please share that, because this winds up being one of Don's most popular masks.
Yeah, because the Michael Myers mask is a Captain James Tiberius Kirk mask.
Only painted white, isn't it? Is that the only difference?
I think so.
Makes well, anyway. Creepy. And I'm sure William Shatner loves to hear that. Anyway, and in addition to Star Trek, he also, gets the licensing rights to a certain film series we all know and love. So this brings us why Don Post is at the Walt Disney World Village back in October of 1977. He just acquired the license to not only make Chewbacca masks, but Darth Vader, C-3PO, and Stormtrooper hard plastic masks. And I came across an ad for them today, Dan, while I was doing the research for the show, and to have this, one of the very first true Star Wars collectibles would have set you back $39.95. And
how much that would be in modern pricing?
I do not know. I should have checked on.
That's.
But anyway, okay. So Post has come down to Orlando to promote the fact that he now has the Star Wars license. And so who does he bring along with him to publicize this event? But he has this 6-foot-tall friend who's a bodybuilder who, and I've never quite had this explained to me how he has the outfit, but he has a movie-authentic Darth Vader outfit in October of 1977. So, and remember, this is the period where, what is it? With Kenner, it's the early bird set of toys.
That's right. The early bird set, the box you could get. That's right.
Yeah. So it wasn't a question that the movie's only been in theaters since May. So it's like either this is one of the Darth Vader outfits from the film, or Don has leaned on somebody in the industry and got them to make the outfit for him, and it's movie accurate. And where the story gets interesting is when he came to Orlando, because he was doing this promotional appearance, and they remember I think we talked in a previous show about how Lucasfilm and Fox were trying to keep Star Wars front of mind, so that's that's when they made the characters made the appearance just a month ahead of that on the Donnie Marie show on ABC, and then that short-lived Richard Pryor variety show. So when Don Post arrived in Orlando, he had all sorts of buttons and T-shirts and poster and iron-on things that Lucasfilm and Fox had given him, to the effect of give these away, that they keep people excited about Star Wars. And so the thing is, Don was not ready for what he and Darth encountered when they got to the Walt Disney World Village in October of 1977. Um, to sort of set the stage here, that there was a Central Florida radio station, BJ 105, which the entire week ahead of when Dawn and Darth were supposed to be at the Walt Disney World Village, they were promoting this event, and they were, giving away masks and posters for people who could call in and answer trivia questions about A New Hope. So, Dawn had thought, all right, we're just going to set this up. We're going to be there for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we'll do like a 2-hour session in the morning from 10 a.m. to noon. We'll do a second session, 2-hour session in the afternoon from 2 to 4, and then finally a 1-hour session from 7 to 8. And, we'll just, and he arranged with Disney. It's like, well, where is a centrally located place in the shopping village? And that's under the captain's tower, this outdoors kind of a stage area. So they arrive in Orlando with their boxes of posters and buttons, and this person who, fits in the Darth Vader outfit. But as they pull into the parking lot, out ahead of the 10 o'clock appearance, there are already 500 people lined up in the Florida sun. And this is Friday, the work day. They by 2 o'clock, they had given away all the buttons and the posters, and the T-shirts and the iron-ons, and nobody cared because they were there to get their picture taken with Darth Vader. And every day the crowds grew, and the interesting thing is that Dawn, because again, just like the early bird Kenner thing, they didn't have any masks. They had only just recently gotten the license a couple of weeks in advance, but he was, he had artwork of what the masks were going to look like, and he had, clipboards, for people who wanted to get a mask to sign up for it. And he collected so many signatures and then mailed them out, and then so many people who went to the event actually purchased a Darth Vader or a C-3PO or a Stormtrooper mask, that this is what convinced Dawn to fight tooth and nail to keep the Star Wars mask license. And the Post family was actually able to hang on to this till 1999, Dan.
Which is extraordinary.
Yeah, I think only with the release of Phantom Menace did the rights finally revert back to Lucasfilm, and I would imagine they found somebody who was willing to pay quite a lot to get the mask rights again. But yeah, the funny thing is, you can go online right now, and if you Google Darth Vader Disney World 1977, you can get to see some amazing images of tiny little girls standing next to the giant 6-foot man in the Darth Vader outfit, and all these little girls just look delighted that I'm here with Darth Vader. I'm here with the Sith Lord. My Disney World vacation is made.
That's so great.
It is. And what was kind of interesting about this is, of course, Dawn certainly didn't know. Nobody knew in the fall of '77 that there was this. There were all these other films coming, or that Star Wars would be this evergreen thing. But Dawn and Darth did so well on that trip that by the time 1980 rolled around and Empire was being released, they went back to Orlando. But that's a story we will save for another edition of Looking at Lucasfilm.
I love it. Don and Darth sounds a lot like Dan and Drew. Notice I put Drew in the Darth Vader position.
Well, and I've seen you do a lot of social media over the past couple of weeks or so, and you were just putting out some wonderful images from the Star Wars celebration in Chicago last year.
Yes.
And again, thanks to Drew for filling in for me. That I had this bow out of celebration because we were dealing with my dad at that point. But speaking of which, though, you've got to be, and again, I'm sorry to be the Debbie Downer again, but you've been paying attention to Governor Newsom in California as well as I have.
Yes.
And the way he's talking now, I'm growing concerned not only about San Diego Comic-Con, but this year's Star Wars celebration.
Yeah, it doesn't sound promising or optimistic. I mean, I remain hopeful until I hear otherwise. But yeah, if as the governor mentioned the other day, he can't imagine there being large gatherings through the month of August in the state of California. So it doesn't sound hopeful. And I really, really want to be, because I think this will be great. But I'm afraid that this is going to affect international travel, of course. I mean, would people internationally want to travel if it was open? I mean, it may be. It's really hard to tell. I'm glad I don't have to make that call. But obviously, safety and health and common sense has to come first.
It has to. But all right, well, but if people want to keep tabs on this sort of stuff, or more to the point, just in general, what's going on in the world of Star Wars now, are you still doing the 2 live Coffee with Kenobis per week?
I'm doing the regular podcast comes out every Thursday, as it always has, and then every Monday night at 8:00 p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi or coffeewithkenobi.com/live. That is where you can find me doing the live shows.
Oh, okay.
They're video, so it's fun. Like I said, I think I said this on a previous show, but I put a lot of production value into it and try to incorporate top 5s every week to include people in the conversations. And we've had an absolute blast, really. And then we're also releasing them after Facebook Live. They stay on our Facebook page, of course, which you can like anytime. But we're also putting them in our YouTube channel and on Instagram too.
Well, that's great. And again, obviously, the weird part of it is you would think with, people being furloughed and all that, there wouldn't be all that much to talk about, but that's really not the case.
No, there's 40 plus years of history to dive into.
Yeah, there we go. That's you and I work. We definitely both work that side of the street, but
yes.
But anyway, and now, and again, it's not just Coffee with Kenobi. You've also got your Patreon project, right? Or
that's right. We have a Patreon page, patreon.com/coffeewithkenobi. We have an exclusive podcast all called CWK Pour-Over, where we look at popular culture. And depending on the level of contribution you get per month, you can see podcasts, videos, or be part of a live stream as well.
Wow. Okay, I thought I was busy. And speaking of busy, let's see, we got Disney Dish with Len Testa. We got Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, who says hi, by the way.
Well, good. Hello, Drew. He's kind of been slipping on the giving Danzy grief stuff. He needs to kind of step up his game.
Very, very busy. I don't know if you've seen some of the stories he's been writing for Vanity Fair, but Drew has been kicking butt.
Oh, he's been amazing. Yeah, he has been amazing.
Stuff. But yeah, we got Marvelous As I Do with Aaron Adams, the gentleman who edits a lot of the podcasts here at the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. We got Universal Giant with Dustin Fuse. We're working on a new edition of that. Likewise, in fact, if you enjoyed Dan and I talking about the Hallmark ornaments, Michelle Valladolid and I are going to do a deep dive on that stuff for the next episode if I want that. Though, tell you what, folks, if you could do us a favor, both Dan and I, if you could head over to iTunes and rate and recommend both Coffee with Kenobi and looking at Lucasfilm, that would be incredibly helpful. Nancy would like me to remind you, you can also subscribe to the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network over at Bandcamp. Let's see. Did we talk about your social media presence, Dan?
Oh, no, not yet. Thanks for bringing that up. You can find me, if you want to continue the conversation, on Twitter at Mr. Zehr, MRZEHR, and Coffee with Kenobi's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and YouTube.
Okay. We're not nearly that ambitious. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Jim Hill Media, and on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And I guess that's going to do it for this week, folks. And but like I said, mark the calendars. Lots of good stuff coming on May 4th. And would love to talk with you folks as we head into this final run of Star Wars Clone Wars to see what you think of the show. So, but we'll get to that on the next edition of Look at Lucasfilm.